Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next in our series of reactionless videos. Today we're going to be looking at Beat It by Michael Jackson. We're going through all of the number one songs of the 1980s, and now we are up to the 3-week number one from April of 1983. As I said, Beat It. And so the lighting, I'm a little self-conscious about the lighting on this video. I feel like I'm in the Fiona Apple criminal video at the moment because it's very overcast outside. So my studio light, as it were, that I'm using is seeming harsher than normal. But hopefully. Well, I can tell because I am sort of looking at myself that it's doing the job of illuminating me, and we'll dispense with the vanity and get on with the reactionless video. For those of you who are wondering what I mean by reactionless video, I did over 100 reactions on this channel, and following the template of the many very talented and expressive reactors that came before me. And then I realized I don't have a talent for that. What I can do is talk about what I think about the music and what I think about the music videos, but what I can't do is fully reflect in my facial expressions exactly what I'm thinking or how I'm reacting to things. A lot of my reaction is happening inside my head, and that would be messy for me to show you, and it probably wouldn't be illustrative of for your purposes. It would just be, I'm sorry, I got a little gory there for a second. But anyway, apparently I am in a very unique mood today. But we will get past that and try to stay on subject here. Today we're going to talk about Beat It, and again, as with Billie Jean, I will confess that I did not refresh my memory by watching the video or listening to the song before making the video. Normally I will listen and watch 3 or 4 times to get the song, reacquaint myself with the song or the video. Beat It is one of those songs I could pretty much, like I said with Billie Jean, I could reconstruct it inside my head, the entire arrangement. I remember almost every frame of the music video. One thing that I did overlook from the Beat It music video that came to my attention because of, I think this was a slightly viral screen grab that went around a month or 2 ago, is that one of the dancers, one of the backup dancers in the video was actually really bad and very out of sync, and someone like flagged that and noticed it. And that's, given Michael Jackson's usual very high production standards, it's sort of funny to see that there was something so egregious in one of his music videos. And of course, me being the snarky Janet fan that I am, said you would never see something like that in a Janet Jackson video. It's funny because it's true, but the music video and the song Beat It were both groundbreaking. They married two worlds that really had drifted apart, and I blame that drifting apart on the whole disco era. This is where the R&B and soul and pop music camps went into one direction, and the rock got very hard and metally and guitar-y and a bunch of other adjectives that don't exist, and they became two very different animals. Now, of course, up through the 60s, there was a lot of crossover between soul and rock, in my opinion, anyway. And there were some groups that held on to that, like Sly and the Family Stone, Isley Brothers, to some degree Earth, Wind, and Fire. There definitely were people who were staying firmly put with one foot in each field of endeavor. But for the most part, disco had kind of taken R&B in more of an electronic and groove-oriented direction, and rock had distilled its essence into sort of hard rock tropes in the early 80s. And so we had the ascendancy of groups like, well, in the 70s we had Led Zeppelin. In the 80s there was, like, at this time there was Quiet Riot and who else was big at the time? Def Leppard was starting to get big, and some other songs. I was not a huge rock and roll fan at the time, and so those aren't just springing to mind right now. But the one thing that was truly not expected was a mainstream pop, R&B, disco artist like Michael Jackson. Although by 1983, the whole disco thing, since it had died, nobody was calling themselves a disco artist any longer. But the idea of him doing a song like Beat It, which was very rock inspired, if not outright rock and roll itself, was with a very heavy emphasis on electric guitar, was completely groundbreaking. No one had ventured that far into that territory, so it was groundbreaking, and I'm going to like reiterate that because I do have some notes on the song and on the video. To me, this is where Beat It is where Michael Jackson started to kind of lose his grip on his image. The whole spiral where he went from being universally beloved and very much on top of his image, in my opinion, it kind of started to unravel here. This is where, and you know, not through any necessarily any fault of the music. I definitely have my opinions about the way he managed his public image around this time and in the years to come, but that's a topic for another video on another channel of mine. What I have to say about this song is that it hasn't aged well to me. Like, I know his fans are just like any of his fans that would listen to me or watch me make a comment like that. People are probably losing their minds, but like, in my opinion, this song was too successful, and number one, too successful, and number two, didn't age well because later iterations of this concept, in other words, R&B or pop artists trying to resituate themselves as hard rock artists or harder edged artists. He set the template for that, but sometimes the original is not the best because they're still the person doing that, breaking the ground, is still trying to figure it out, whereas it lays a foundation for other people to do it more seamlessly. In retrospect, Beat It to me sounds very cartoony. It sounds like something you would put in a video game to represent a hard rock song. There's a sort of a tinniness and a sort of lack of a serious. The guitar line comes across as less than serious. The din 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 din. It's a great melody, but the way that it's played and the way that it sounds, especially to modern ears, I think it just falls a little flat in terms of sounding like a serious, edgy rock song. It almost sounds like this is a pop artist trying to do a rock song. It was very convincing for its time and way more advanced than any of Michael's peers in any of their efforts to do things of this nature. But I mean, and the thing is, not many of them were, but other people would refine it, and they would use, and Michael would get better at it. To me, Dirty Diana is a far superior song to Beat It. But I just think that the production and the arrangement was sort of, it kind of, the seams are showing after all these years. It does kind of sound like a bunch of pop music engineers trying to do a rock song. The beat on the song appears to be, and I'm sure this is easily verifiable, but it appears to be an electronic beat. I think having real drums on the song would have made a difference. And I think there are other choices that could have been made. But who's to say Michael and Quincy Jones and whomever else was in the room, they could have all agreed that they wanted to do it in a particular way to make sure they didn't lose the the mainstream fans that Michael was obviously going after with the whole Thriller project. The idea of the song, the lyrics of the song, are similarly kind of, if not cringy, a little bit corny. Instead of implying toughness, instead of insinuating through like the use of a story that illustrates that it's about being tough, Michael's making like a dead-on attempt to say, hey, you want to be a tough guy, you want to be bad, you know, and it's a very directly aggressive song. It's sort of it's the sort of stereotypical song you'd expect someone who's not really a rock artist to write if someone told them to write a rock song. There's not a lot of nuance or finesse in the way the song is composed. So, but it is a killer riff. Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo is outstanding and very showboaty, appropriately showboaty, and it fits the song perfect. The music video was groundbreaking in terms of its choreography. Like, nobody else was putting that much effort into choreography. I mean, granted, the one guy was completely offbeat and didn't really seem to know the choreography as well, but by and large, the degree of coordination and synchronization and just the quality in the detail in the choreography was something that just wasn't being done at that point. This was Michael showing up and showing out and showing people how music videos, what music videos could really be, what their potential was. And he did it like once, twice, and then 3 times over with the 3 music videos from this album. Can you imagine if he had done like a visual album like back then with the entire 9-track listing? It would have been something else. But so yeah, I appreciate the groundbreaking nature of the record, but you know, it's not a song. It's not one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. I think he outdid himself in terms of doing harder edged or rock and roll songs subsequent to this. But it was a foot in the door. It was a way to say, you can't pigeonhole me. It was a statement song as much as anything else. But in terms of a standalone artistic experience, you know, I could sort of, to some degree, take it or leave it. But it's, you know, the vocals are very convincing. Michael definitely does a good job channeling that grit and that growly nature and sort of showing that side of himself. So there's a lot to like in the song, and truthfully, if it weren't such an iconic song that I had heard probably dozens, if not hundreds of times in the 80s, then I might have a different and more favorable impression of it now, looking back on it 40 plus years later. So that's what I have to say about Beat It. Surprisingly, to a lot of people, after this burst of number one activity, he had just come off a 7-week number one with Billie Jean, and then he came right back 2 weeks later, and then spent 3 more weeks at number one with Beat It. But after that, those 10 out of 11 weeks at number one, Michael Jackson never returned to the number one position on the Hot 100 for any single off of the Thriller album. To some degree, in many ways, Michael was a victim of his own success. It was sort of difficult to get people behind, it was sort of hard to get people to buy a single when everyone already had the album. Like, record sales were a big part of the formula back then, and album sales really could cannibalize singles sales. So by the time Beat It ended its run at number one, probably we were at maybe, I don't know, 10 million records sold at that point. I'm just throwing out a number, I don't know, but at that point, so there was a saturation point, both in hearing his song on the radio and hearing his music on the radio and people buying the album, that it kind of cannibalized the chart success that his subsequent singles could have had. There was definitely the appetite there when he released Say 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 with Paul McCartney, which was not on Thriller. Later that year, they spent another 7 or 8 weeks or whatever it was at number one with that song. So people wanted to support Michael Jackson. It just wasn't practical, I think, to expect with the environment being what it was and Thriller being the monstrous success that it was as an album, that any other songs would actually go number one. So that's my take on the chartiness of it. Michael wouldn't return to number one again until 1987. So it would be, I just lied after just saying that Say 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 went to number one. After Beat It was Say Say Say, and then that fell off of the number one position in early '84, and then it would be another 3 plus years before Michael would hit number one again. I'm fact checking myself mentally. I think that is correct, but you can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. So anyway, that's my evaluation of Beat It, and we'll wrap it up there. I'm glad Amir made his little presence known. So everyone say goodbye to Amir, and all y'all help me to make music better.